Hello and welcome to the 2017 uLoL Campus Series. We got a new format with more teams than ever, and we're aiming to make this season the best one yet. My name is Tom Sierfoss, and here on the desk with me is Mark Zimmerman. Mark, how's it going?
It's going all right. I'm in a little bit of a transition period, moving back to LA. It's been a little bit of a struggle, but I'm happy to be doing some League of Legends, and especially the collegiate scene.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Last year, we had 32 teams competing in conference play, but this year, we're turning things up a notch, and we have over 200 teams, which is why I need your help.
Yeah, we'll be featuring one match this week, but starting next week and for the remainder of the season, we'll be having 2 matches every week. One from the Campus Series and one from the Big Ten Network League.
So that's 2 matches for the price of 1.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal.
Not too bad. If your team isn't one of the featured teams here, don't worry. We'll be releasing power rankings and highlight some of those teams just to catch you up on your favorite teams from all around the nation. Now, we've divided all of the teams in the Campus Series into 4 major conferences: the North, the South, the East, and the West. So what we're looking at right now is the individual power rankings for each division. Each conference is divided into 6 teams where they play within their own groups, playing against each other team once. Then the top 2 teams from each of these groups of 6 enter the single elimination postseason playoffs, slowly whittling down their numbers until a conference champion is finally decided. It's going to be an exciting year, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're bringing you more collegiate League of Legends action than ever, and it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, so why don't we take a look at the schedule for today. This week, we're going to be featuring the University of California, Irvine, as they chase their Western Conference championship dreams against the up-and-coming University of Wyoming. Then next week, we have the University of Texas taking on North Carolina in the Campus Series, and then Maryland will be playing Rutgers in the Big Ten.
All right, well, let's take a look at today's matchup, and it's UC Irvine and Wyoming. Now, the first time these teams are going to play against each other, and I don't even think Wyoming made the Campus Series last year, right?
No, they did not. So this is a rookie team, which makes it all the more exciting to see them today. We don't exactly know their capabilities, but everybody on the team is excited to kind of prove what they got, especially against a Titan of the West like UC Irvine.
Yeah, and speaking of UC Irvine, like you said, they are this kind of prestigious team that's been around basically since the beginning. They have a lot of good teams, and they're one of the first schools to really start offering scholarships for League of Legends in the collegiate area. And even though they didn't have a great end to last year, they struggled a little bit, they are still kind of this prestigious team that's been around for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. So in UCI, they were a powerhouse in the collegiate scene from 2012, 2013. This was the most dominant team historically, but they've kind of struggled to regain some of that supremacy. They weren't necessarily where they were. They ended their split last time 1-1 against their rivals in UCLA, but could this be the year that they bounce back?
Well, I think they have a good chance to, because they've done a lot of stuff recently to kind of like level up their play. They got Peter Zhang, formerly Team Liquid coach, who I worked with. He's going to be joining the team coaching them, and even though he gets a little bit of flack for maybe how his year with Team Liquid ended, he actually is a pretty good coach, and especially good with younger players, because he has a vision for what he wants done in the game, and he's really good about communicating that. So I think he's going to be a really useful pickup for them.
We'll have to see if UC Irvine can reclaim their spot in the West by taking a look at the rosters for today. Why don't we start off by looking at the University of California, Irvine?
Yeah, so in the top lane, we have Tower of God. Jungle is Locktren. Mid is Youngbin, formerly of Team Liquid Academy, who also worked with Peter. Then we have Impala Tamer at AD carry, and support is Tianla Temp Name.
Yeah, and Tower of God's the only returning player from the squad of last year's roster, so it's going to be interesting to see what these new players kind of bring to the table, and like you said, especially Youngbin, who's worked with Coach Peter before.
Right, and of course, on the other side of the rift, they are facing Wyoming. In the top lane is Mom Gank Please. Mid is Get Reform. Jungle, Trinity, AD Carry, Papa Fresco, and support Zenthid.
Yeah, and Wyoming told us that the only game they're nervous about this entire season, this entirety of the Campus Series, is their first match here against the Titans of UC Irvine.
Right, and that's kind of, personally for me, not something I would want to do. I don't like going trial by fire mode. I'd rather have this thing that you're building up to over the course of the season, even though it might be a little dreadful that you're always going to this bigger rival. At the same time, I'd rather be doing that than just instantly facing them right away.
Yeah, well, while Wyoming has a lot still to prove, do you think that UCI has what it takes to try to make it back to that Final Four?
Right, I think they have a pretty good chance of going on a good run this season. I think the additions that they have to this team are really big, on top of the fact that they have their esports arena and things like that that they're working with. And I think they just have a really good infrastructure kind of around this team, and that's going to be the kind of stuff that you need to constantly improve over the course of the season and go deep.
Well, now it's one of my favorite parts of the show, where instead of just theorizing who we're actually going to see in this game. We get to jump into picks and bans to see who is actually going to be playing and who's going to come out ahead in this matchup.
Right, and so one of the things that's different between the collegiate scene and the professional scene that's going on right now is that the collegiate scene is still using the 3-ban or 6-ban system as opposed to the 10-ban system that has been used there.
Yeah, so because these guys are playing from all over the country, different places, whatever, they can't get together like the LCS teams you do see every week, so there's not going to be the 10-ban system, but that means that we could potentially see some of those favorite picks, some of those powerful picks getting through the pick and ban phase.
Right, I think that's kind of what you see different is the fact that because these guys don't scrim nearly as much as the really interlocked regions do, you end up with a lot more diverse pocket picks than what happens when everyone is communicating and talking about what seems good in the meta and stuff like that. But of course, it seems like there are a couple of things everyone agrees are busted. Camille is one of them. Tower of God is played a lot in the regular or in a solo queue, so pretty good target ban to go against him there, but it's a little weird to do it on blue side.
Yeah, it is very interesting because you are going to wind up getting that first pick, but if it's just that powerful, they feel that maybe they haven't been practicing enough as a team, maybe they just don't want to have to deal with it whatsoever, they ban it away right away. But the same thing with kind of those power picks in the bottom lanes, we both see both Karma and Zyra being banned out from the support spot.
Right, and like we were saying, I think the first ban phase from the 10-ban system is what the ban system is going to look like in the 6-ban because you're basically just banning away the power picks. So Katarina is another one. Riven's actually a really interesting one. Something I would not call a power pick, but definitely one of those snowball-y things that you expect to see in the collegiate scene where people just go ham. Everyone in the pro play tends to be a little safe. They're concerned. They don't want to look bad on the big stage, whereas I think in the collegiate scene, people are just more there to just show off. They're not, this isn't their career. It's not like this is your entire life, and I think that lets them play a little looser, which is something I personally enjoy seeing.
Yeah, and we actually saw in the uLoL rivalry series towards the end of 2016, we saw some of those very powerful pocket picks getting through a pick and ban phase and seeing what players could do with them. There was an Akali, quote-unquote, one-trick Akali player that got his
name was
champion.
like I main Akali or something.
I main Akali and just wanted to let it through. Of course, it got banned away a lot. He got it in one game, did some interesting stuff with it, but Ryze being that last ban here, pretty standard stuff besides that Riven ban, and the Nautilus being hovered over right now by University of Wyoming. That's just a very powerful pickup to just kind of say, I'm going to put this top lane.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I'd put it quite on the same level as some of the other tanks. Obviously, they're all around the same level, talking about Maokai, Poppy, and Nautilus, but you generally see the Maokai and Poppy prioritized over the Nautilus, whereas usually you're grabbing that one after the other two have been kind of targeted a little bit. There's some other interesting first picks that you tend to see. Syndra, another one. Malzahar support, I'm surprised isn't something that we're seeing quite yet. On the other side, you see Irvine locks in the Poppy and the Rengar, which is a beast in the jungle.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of priority so far in pro play on that Rengar as well as the Poppy pick, but the Rengar himself has become one of those very carry-centric style junglers. The way that the jungle has been changed, the addition of plants, giving him even more maneuverability and gank angles, he's a monster to have to deal with.
Right, and with a number of assassin picks that we see a little bit in the top lane and in the mid lane, he's great for snowballing them because once he hits 6, he gets that ultimate, he can come out of nowhere. His kind of reveal is larger, the area. People can see it coming a little bit further away, but sometimes you just can't do anything about it. Like, you can see the train coming, you can't get out of the way.
You can't stop it. But it looks like they are going to wind up following up on the side of Wyoming by picking Graves in the jungle, which is another very powerful pick, more of a carry kind of centric style coming out of that. And then the Syndra, who's been high priority mid lane pick since pretty much Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, Syndra is still extremely strong. With the Ryze banned out, I think Syndra is one of the strongest control mages left you can take. That's kind of the other thing that people are playing aside for the Assassins is the control mages, of course. They're always relevant. We see Youngbin locking in the Orianna, one of his signature champions. Sad I don't get to see his Victor, but hopefully that shows up later. And of course, the Caitlyn for Impala Tamer.
Yeah, Caitlyn's just a pretty powerful pickup from the bottom lane in general. You're basically saying like, hey, I'm going to try to dominate you in the lane phase. Yes, she does kind of have a little bit of a fall off in the mid game, really needs that full item build to really get going. But if you're not going to need to be that carry-centric focus of the mid game here, you have the Orianna who has powerful team fights, you have the Rengar who already talked about as a monster to have to deal with. One of those two champions is going to let you kind of coast into that late game build.
Right, and on the other side we see the Ezreal and Janna locked in, a very poke-centric defensive bot lane. A little interesting to see that one. Ezreal's strong, but usually a little bit considered lower than the utility 80 carries that you see in the form of Ashe, Jhin, and to see the Ezreal picked up just like that, a little surprising, but maybe not as bullied as hard by the Caitlyn, which is of course a concern.
And like you said, the Ashe left open was completely unpicked here. The Ezreal may just be something that Papa Francesco is a little bit more comfortable on, but overall a very not necessarily full defensive, but very reactive kind of stuff coming out from the University of Wyoming. Although it does look like for the side of UC Irvine, we're going to get a last potential pick of Tom Kench, which has been rising in popularity.
Yeah, I actually like the Tom Kench pick. I'd like it once you ban out those really oppressive laning supports like the Zyra and the Karma, which we see were banned out here. So I actually like the Tom Kench pick in that regard. And the Janna Ezreal lane is not the lane to punish the melee Tom Kench, so I think it's a pretty safe pick here. And I was a little surprised mostly by the Graves, and we can pull up the recap of the draft phase to look at it. And the Graves pick to me just kind of stood out a little kind of out of nowhere because there weren't any bans, and we see the Rengar came out. That's one of the highest priority ones. And then you would generally think you see like a Lee Sin, a Rek'Sai,
exactly.
At least something else. The Graves is usually what people are forced onto.
And the Graves himself is not necessarily a very... He can gank lanes that have CC for him, so he does have the Nautilus, and he does have the Syndra. She's able to land a stun, but potentially putting priority on that bottom lane where maybe you want to try that set that Caitlyn behind without having his own kind of form of crowd control out of the jungle, like a Rek'Sai can provide, like Lee Sin can potentially have post-level 6. You're not necessarily going to be able to lock them down and really get those lanes rolling. You're more of like a farm-centric, I will be the carry jungler.
It's kind of how a lot of these lanes play. Other than the Syndra, they don't have a ton of playmaking tools available to them, whereas on the flip side, you see a lot coming in for UC Irvine. The Rengar can do stuff. The Tom Kench can pour people in behind. Poppy's just a monster in terms of setting stuff up. So on that regard, I think the early game initiative is really in UCI's favor.
Well, I was going to ask you who you thought was going to take today's match, but by the summary of that draft phase, it kind of seems like you're already leaning towards UCI.
Yeah, of course. I think UCI is favored just in general when you look at the strength of the team, on top of the fact that I do favor their draft phase. So I'm really looking for them to take this game.
Well, you've got our predictions, at least Mark's prediction. I'm kind of on the same boat as you.
You're hiding your answer.
No.
You're scared.
I'm going to put it out there right now. I also think that UCI kind of got the better of the draft phase. Like I just like their overall team composition a little bit more. They're the ones that can make things proactively happen on the map, and I'm a big fan of when teams can actually do things on the map instead of having to wait to make like a counterplay to that.
Right, of course. My favorite League of Legends is watching people farm.
Well, that's a little bit different than what I want, but you got our predictions now. But we'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. So get on Twitter and let us know by tweeting either hashtag Wyoming or hashtag UCI and tweet it at uLoL so you guys can get your vote counted in here as well.
All right, well, now hopefully you guys head to Twitter, and then while you're doing that, let's get into the game.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I expect a pretty bloody game. Like I said, the collegiate scene is, generally speaking, a lot looser of a scene than the professional scene. And as I was talking about those early game playmaking champions on the side of UCI, I expect a bloodbath.
You know, we'll have to see how this one actually winds up panning out. Maybe we'll get that Farm Fest League of Legends. Maybe we won't. We have two very kind of carry-centric jungle styles, but we are into game number 1 of University of Wyoming against UC Irvine, kicking off the uLoL Campus Series in style here as we're loading up into this one. We'll have to see where they really kind of put their priority in the earlier stages of the game, because as we mentioned in Champion Select, Graves, not a lot of hard CC himself, really wants to be the farmer. His lanes do have a little bit of crowd control to facilitate, but are they going to be put off by this very powerful Rengar pick?
Right, and you might see a little bit of a slow first couple minutes of the game where Rengar is really looking for 6. He actually does kind of scrap a lot of junglers pretty well, but I don't think that's necessarily what UCI needs to do. I think you can just wait till 6, combo with the Orianna. That is a well-known combo between the jungler and mid laners where it feels like sometimes there's zero counterplay in what you want to do against it. But like I said, the indicator's a little bit longer on Rengar now. It's a little easier to see it coming. So I think you'll mostly just be waiting to see those kinds of plays come out. We see a pretty safe level 1 here. Teams just pinging each other out, getting a little bit of vision. A small brush setup on University of Wyoming side, hoping someone kind of face checks there.
This is actually not that surprising. With the way that Wyoming played the draft phase, seeing them not kind of be more reactive and just be on the defensive using that kind of line of scrimmage style to set up to counter any sort of invades from the Rengar doesn't really shock me all too much. They're going to be the ones that want to really just kind of play this one safe. And just the side of UC Irvine looks like they're going to be okay with just reciprocating the same kind of thing. Now, coming into this one, UC Irvine does have a lot kind of at stake. They do have like their reputation behind them. They have a lot of, we talked about earlier, they have the coach, they have the facilities to train in.
A lot of resources put into this.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how they actually wait and show that discipline, as it looks like they might be waiting in the tri-brush.
Yeah, a little bit of brush cheese going to get a lot of damage down onto them, force them to take a weird path to get back into the lane.
Yeah, Zinthad actually took a brunt of the damage. They immediately swapped on the Papa Francesco, so they want to prioritize that damage onto the Ezreal. Janna, it looks like, had already wound up using her shield. They switched priority targets. They're trying to get as much damage as possible and poke them down. Whereas on the flip side of the map here, Loptran already going for an early jungle invade, and Trinity's just on the other side. He sees him on that ward, We'll have to see if he actually does anything about it or if he just kind of lets him go. Graves, with the reload mechanic, does have a couple of shots, or a little bit of time to wait between those shots, but Lock Tran here just up in his face, contesting this blue Sentinel. The Q comes out, and it does look like the blue buff is going to be stolen by Lock Tran.
And that hurts too, because Rengar managing to steal that blue while he's not going to get it, put it to great use. The fact that it's off the Graves is pretty big, and we see Youngbin moving out of mid lane to help control this Scuttle Crab for the side of UC Irvine.
Yeah, that's just taking a lot of experience away from the first clear coming out from Graves. A lot of the jungle changes in Season 7 were heavily prioritized around where the different kinds of experience were going to be coming from the camps, and those epic monsters are crucial for that first clear because they grant full experience.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really nice clear for Rek'Sai being able to secure so many of these kind of contestable jungle camps, and he's got his whole bot side jungle still up, so he's really sitting pretty and going to be able to farm up to 6 pretty quickly, which is, like I said, going to be the main focus for UC Irvine in the early game.
Yeah, and Youngmin using the Orianna's early lane pressure, coming out from just putting the ball in Syndra's face and just kind of saying, don't pass this, otherwise you're going to take a lot of damage. Shoved Hard is able to kind of roam up and support that invade there, so they did get a decent amount of damage down onto Trinity, so he is going to have to be a little bit wary as he continues his jungle clear, and even though Lock Tran has his whole jungle he wants to clear out, he's still up in Trinity's face. He does not want him getting a full clear on Graves.
Yeah, and this might be prioritizing a little bit too much of the counter jungling. I mean, you can just be happy taking your whole bot side jungle. Don't want to offset the blue buff timing too much where Syndra's going to have that for a lot longer than Orianna will on the respawn, of course. But in the bot lane, we see that it's going pretty well for UCI. You would be a little concerned about the melee matchup on paper, but when you actually think about it, like I said before, the Janna Ezreal is not going to punish a Tahm Kench too hard. He doesn't really care what they think.
No, and even though Ezreal has that poke priority, Caitlyn's ridiculously long range in that bottom lane is just punishing him right now. Already wound up using his HP pot there, so Ezreal's going to be without that sustainability. Does have the Janna shield, though, potentially take some of those trades a little bit more favorable, but every single lane from the side of UCI seems to be the aggressors in their lane. And as we mentioned from Champion Select, that was one of the things we liked about their draft, and it could be just playing upon those fears of a brand new Wyoming squad.
Yeah, we saw a good trade out of Syndra there, though, and hopefully he can keep that up. I mean, this is a little bit Syndra favored matchup, but Oris can generally play it pretty defensively. You sometimes see 2 points E early with a Negatron, making it so that you just can't get bursted out once 6 hits, and then you're more concerned, like I said, about setting up those combos or moving around the map and getting team plays done as opposed to dominating lane, whereas Syndra generally plays more around herself.
Well, it's also very difficult for Orianna to have a bad matchup. Like, a lot of the matchups may be against Orianna, but it's like one of those matchups where it's like, yeah, but if Orianna's okay, she can still wind up coming out like rather unscathed.
Yep, and we saw a couple quick looks at the top side of the map, but of course, we don't really need to look there. We got tank versus tank.
There's a big reason we don't want to look at that top lane.
Yeah, it's going to be boring. But, I mean, of course, you do have the Poppy, 10 CS up. It's a good lead. Pretty big lead, actually, given that it's only 5 minutes into the game, and I bet Tower God's going to keep trying to push that more and more. And if he's able to chunk out Mom Gank Please too hard, it's not that bad to bring the Rengar up for those kills. Those are usually pretty guaranteed kills in tank versus tank matchup because tanks bring so much CC and Rengar brings the damage.
And speaking of a couple of ganks, it looks like Trinity's going to be the first to make an appearance in the mid lane here. They do want to getting the Syndra stun onto Youngbin. The Ghost has been popped. A lot of damage gets traded as the Thunderlord's proc is there to follow, but Youngbin still with a decent amount of money here. Get Reformed, low himself. He's actually going to turn that one around and forces the 2v1 away.
Yeah, that's not a bad gank, but the fact that they weren't able to force the flash means it ultimately wasn't too useful and just ends up wasting a little bit of time. They didn't even shove him out of lane, which is probably what they were going for to get the Syndra reset. So, I mean, that was not exactly what they were hoping for.
No, not at all. And Trinity, using a little bit of his time from his already pillaged jungle, is about 1 level behind Lock Tran, who is just continuing to power farm, going from his Wraith camp over towards the Scuttle Crab in the top side of the river. But all of his lanes are relatively pushed up now, so if he is going to wind up going for a gank, it has to be a dive here, but level 6 caught by Orianna. Command Shockwave comes out, the flash was there by Get Reformed, and First Blood does get secured by Youngbin. Yeah,
that was a little sloppy of a play. They missed a lot of damage, but the fact that they were able to force the ult out initially was just enough, and he lands the bullet to slow him, allowing Youngbin to close in to pick up the kill. And as much as you don't mind kills on Rengar, they're fine on Orianna as well.
They're not too shabby themselves, but now that's just going to be more about the fact that they've already put pressure on that mid lane. It got turned around by Youngbin just at the cost of his Ghost. He was able to level up to level 6 and has now a level advantage and the kill advantage over the Syndra.
Yeah, the 20 CS as well. I mean, it's not looking good for Syndra at all. Syndra's not necessarily a champion that needs to win lane because you're always going to have that crazy burst damage and you can try and trade 80 carry for your life, stuff like that. But losing this much this early is very dangerous because of the roams that it opens up for the Ori, who can shove out a wave and come in.
And as you saw right here, Youngbin hitting level 6 and then immediately forcing the flash away as soon as the command shockwave comes out. There is no way that Get Reformed is going to be seeing this Rengar coming. There is a ping over there, but it looks like that Rengar coming in relatively undetected from just taking that Scuttle Crab, using the speed boost to kind of get down, and then this command shockwave, the instant flash from Get Reformed. Locktron misses the damage there, does get pushed away, but Youngbin's able to secure the kill.
Right, it's just that kind of greedy play where you see a wave coming in and you really want that farm, you don't want to lose it, but you got to back off there because they did have the control ward, which saw the Rengar come in, and you know that that's coming.
Well, leads across the board so far for UC Irvine. This is mid lane matchup. We mentioned the kill there, but top lane almost double CS, 60-34 for the Poppy up in that top lane. And Youngbin actually continuing to apply the pressure here. He's a CS advantage, got some kill advantage, and the ultimate being popped there by Locktron. He wanted to get the kill for himself, forces the ghost out of Syndra.
Yeah, he wanted it coming, but unfortunately it would have been a little risky to dive under the turret like that. You really don't want to trade back at this point. The Syndra's in a bad spot. The game state's actually really good for UCI here, where all their lanes are learning. We see an aggressive flash in by Youngbin.
Yeah, the flash from Youngbin here. Is he going to be able to catch up in time for Syndra? The ultimate's available. Youngbin is barely going to get out alive. The command protect and the devour by Tahm Kench keeps him alive.
Oh god, this is getting worse and worse for the Syndra. At some point they're going to open this map up completely by taking a turret. I don't know how they're going to recover from that.
Well, now you have a control mage in control of the mid lane matchup. You have two tanks kind of smashing into each other in the top lane. You imagine the fact that the bottom lane is going to be where you're looking, but there's already a 20 CS advantage in favor of Impala Tamer over the side of Papa Francesco as we take another look at this top lane matchup. Like you mentioned here, it's not the fact that this matchup isn't interesting, it's just the fact there's not a lot going on between two tanks just smashing into each other.
Some people would maybe call that not interesting, Tom.
Well,
I'm not one of them.
I'm just more disinterested in the fact that there's a Poppy pickup here. So.
Oh, you're sick of the Poppy?
I'm
Been
really
meta too
tired
long?
of it.
Yeah, I feel you.
I've been tired of it since 2010.
I don't think I guess Poppy was a different champion then.
She was definitely a different champion, but I'm still tired of the pick itself. But she's just been super powerful for too long. We saw her played a lot of Worlds, and it's just kind of continued success into now the beginning of Season 7.
So the thing I'm looking at now is trying to figure out how University of Wyoming gets back in the game. We talked about how both the top and bot lane are relatively inactive lanes where you're mostly focused on farming. The Nautilus does have some good ganks set up, but he is relatively weak. And your mid lane, the one power position that you should have, is losing pretty hard, as we see Graves getting cut off here.
Ooh, yeah, he has to burn the flash away there from Trinity as Tower of God with the roam down from that Poppy. Flash for flash trade though, so that's two summoners burned, one from each side, but that's continuing the pressure, the tempo from UC Irvine. They know that they need those lanes to farm up from the side of University of Wyoming, and they're not going to let it the pressure. They want to kind of take control of that tempo. We'll have to see if they transition that into maybe getting one of those first tower bloods, or if they try to prioritize that Infernal Dragon on the map.
I mean, they are going to probably play it pretty slow, as we see Caitlyn getting a little chunked out. Now, the thing I like, though, is just the vision control. You can see that they have 4 wards total. One just got cleared out by Graves, but they have a lot of deep vision on the side of Wyoming, whereas on the flip side, Wyoming has no deep vision on UCI. So that means they're free to run around and set things up as they need to, and there's no advanced warning coming, which is extremely dangerous versus a Rengar, where ideally your warning is camps. Ooh.
The flash in there from Impala Tamer through the exhaust. The Piltover Peacemaker is able to get the kill. It looks like Tempname wants to get the Janna as well, but they are going to back away. Just well played there by that bot lane from UCI.
Yeah, I didn't really think there was a kill available there, but out of nowhere they get it. So, I mean, he had the flash, the Ezreal, maybe if he saw it coming, could have flashed out of that, but the death comes in, and now the turret's under a little bit of pressure and might go down.
Yeah, it's about half HP tower. Janna can only just put a shield on it and kind of walk away here. That pressure coming out from the Caitlyn bully lane has been immense right now. We already knew that the Ezreal wasn't necessarily a counter lane matchup as much as a safe pick into that one, much like the kind of the way that Orianna wasn't supposed to be a very powerful pickup, as we see her continuing to put pressure down onto Get Reformed Syndra here. Blue buff acquired by her means that she's just going to be able to spam at those command attacks, spam at those command shockwaves, and put the pressure down there. The bot lane tower, now that Locktron has kind of realized that this tower is super, super low, they're going to roam down here, and they're going to be looking at the pickup first tower blood here, as they are going to get that one. They have to use the Tahm Kench Devours, and Impala Tamer almost got cut out there by some damage from Trinity, but the bolas come out from Rengar, and they're able to just back away.
Yep, pretty much exactly how you want to do it. They bring their jungler down, you bring yours down, you have a little 3v3 in the bot lane as you take the turret in front of them and just disengage safely.
Yeah, and unfortunately the side of Wyoming was just really not able to get anything done there. The tier start from Ezreal, of course, means that you're not necessarily going to be as powerful as some of the opposing AD carries in the lane phase. And even though he had died and gone back and picked up a Sheen, he still wasn't necessarily in the right kind of spot for that one. So easy first tower gold picked up for their side, and transitioned into Caitlyn picking up an extremely early, not only Berserker's Greaves, but the Zeal pickup as well.
Yeah, and with those items, the big concern is she's going to start running around the map. She's heading down bot lane right now to just stabilize this lane, get it shoving, but then after that, I expect to see them start moving around the map and using her to just bully down towers, which is one of her greatest strengths. When she does get a little bit ahead of the game, she can really just sit in front of stuff and not feel too threatened, just keep poking, chipping down these turrets. And I expect to see this kind of stuff out of UC Irvine. If they want to make a deep push into the playoffs, these are the kind of situations that they need to be able to snowball. They're winning every lane. They took the first turret. You have a Caitlyn. Let's see if they can start opening the map up more using her.
And when you're playing against a team who's new to the uLoL campus series like University of Wyoming, we talked about their pregame jitters. They said that this was the matchup they're most worried about, and they're already coming into this as a brand new squad themselves. Being able to kind of prey upon that fact, get into the portion of the game where you know that you have the cohesion as a team, where you have the resources available to you to learn kind of how to rotate around the map after lane phase. You end that lane phase extremely early. You pick a pick like that Caitlyn that can move around the map and take the other towers, and you force the other team to show, all right, well, what are you going to do to respond?
Right, and I mean, it's a 3.5K gold lead, almost 4 basically, as they go once again onto the Syndra, blowing the exhaust, going to get the Devourer in here in a second. Or maybe not.
Well, he's tanking up the tower right now. He still has that thick skin available, so he is going to get the Devourer, and he will take the kill himself. Double shields coming out, one from Tahm Kench, one from Orianna, but Tahm Kench does mosey himself into an entire enemy team, as Trinity is going to get the first kill on the board for the University of Wyoming.
Yep, good claps out of them to punish that overextension, getting a little greedy for that kill. But it's not too bad. You know, that gives Poppy alone time in the turret to take that down. A lot of damage done by Youngbin and Locktran on the members of University of Wyoming as they try their
flash
damnedest.
forward. Youngbin gets the kill there and the double bust from Trinity. These kills just keep coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, you see like they're just staring at each other, then a slight overextension. Once again, another, nice ult, but probably not gonna.
The flash from Locktran there, not gonna secure the kill.
Yeah. This is what we're talking about, though. You see them just staring at each other, and then out of nowhere, UCI goes aggressive, and University of Wyoming doesn't quite seem prepared for it. You get picked off nonstop.
Yeah, it almost seems like as soon as University of Wyoming blinks, UC Irvine is immediately on top of them. And now with the Caitlyn rotating towards that mid lane, we're going to see what we just talked about there, that rotational play. Are they going to be able to take down these outer towers extremely fast? Caitlyn takes up a couple too many tower shots for her liking. She may have to wind up going back, but that's just to be a second tower of the game. And already the rest of the team from the side of UC Irvine has rotated down and started the Inferno Dragon. Even more damage on top of their lead.
Yeah, you know they got to be happy about that one. You're snowballing the game as Youngbin goes really aggressive, blows up Trinity.
Yeah, that Syndra ultimate came out. I don't even see it deal damage, or the command shockwave or the command protect just shielding up way too much. And now that the dragon's gone down, Tempt Name has come back into the mid lane. Youngbin dipping and dodging and ducking, trying to get as much damage as possible. He's able to pick up another kill, 5-0-2 for Youngbin.
Oh God, he is popping off. And this is what I was talking about, that he has this competitive experience. He's played at a high level before, almost qualified into the LCS. And I mean, you can see that he is playing on a different level than his opponents in University of Wyoming.
Yeah, so now Youngbin coming in with this NA Challenger Series experience, just showing off what that can actually do, especially when you're in a team environment like this. And this is just a replay right here of Youngbin going aggressive, the command shockwave used, and then a lot of skill shot dodging and just not a lot of damage being taken.
Right, we see the usefulness of that early Negatron cloak, keeping him alive through the Syndra damage, as well as the command protect, constantly being able to throw it out, the double buffs keeping him alive, adding extra damage, letting him get those cooldowns, having enough mana to blow up the Ezreal as well, and just a crazy 2v3 getting all those kills. 2v4 almost with Janna coming in.
Yeah. And so now that's 5 kills on the side of Youngbin. Another one picked up by the Tahm Kench, who, even though he's support, has the second most kills on the side of UC Irvine. But he's just going to rotate himself up top lane. And now between him and Tower of God, they're going to be taking down their third and final outer tower of the game here. As actually looks like they have picked up a second tower in the bottom lane while those fights were going on as well. So 4 towers to none in favor of UCI.
Yep, as we see them once again engage onto the mid lane, picking up 2 kills quickly.
Man, they are looking to maybe speed run this game. The amount of pressure they're putting down on the map and the way they're just continuously shoving. All of these fights so far, there's 10 kills picked up so far, and a tower has been picked up after almost every 2 kills. So this one right here is going to make it a tower for every 2 kills in favor of UC Irvine. The amount of map pressure they have just because they won that mid lane that early on has been insane.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is you sometimes get into this mode where you take all the outer turrets down, it's like 60 minutes in the game, you're kind of snowballing, you're not exactly sure how to close out from there, but UCI is not having that problem as they continue to pick up kills and turrets all around the map.
Yeah, and even while doing so, their CS advantages in each and every lane have just been absolutely massive. About a 70 CS advantage in the mid lane, another 43 picked up in the side of the 80 carry matchup. Even the top lane matchup has almost a 50 CS advantage, and all this culminating into the fact that they have a 12,000 gold lead at 17 minutes. It's almost 1,000 gold per minute.
That's not a stat you want to hear if you're on the other side.
If you're on the other side,
I mean, UCI is probably loving that stat.
Yeah, exactly. And they got the Infernal Dragon too, so they got 6% extra damage coming out.
Yep, and I think this is the kind of thing where now they have to slow it down a little bit. It might be hard to continue getting kills, assuming that University of Wyoming is able to ward up their jungle, play it a little slower. There's no drag in the forest. Baron's not really a threat. Maybe they pick up the Rift Herald, but you know, I doubt University of Wyoming is really going to contest that. And then there's only 1 turret left outside the actual base in the top lane. So I'm sure that'll be the target for UCI, but it can be a little hard to get up there.
Yeah, it looks like they're just going to make the safe play, like you said, pushing up every single wave, making sure the minions are pushing onto the opposing side of the map, and that they've kind of got every single angle of flanks being covered. Even though the Rift Herald hasn't been a very high priority target since it's kind of been introduced into Summoner's Rift, with it available on the map and it not despawning for about another minute and a half, it looks like they are going to wind up taking it. Who takes it will be very interesting, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it on Rengar. Maybe the Kaelin, as we see Youngbin opening up once again on the Janna, going to pick up a solo kill. Kind of gets caught out, but it's going to force a team fight.
Yeah, Zenith just gets absolutely deleted, but the Tahm Kench and the rest of the cavalry has arrived from the Rift Herald pit. Looks like Trinity's going to take down Lockshine as he jumped into that shotgun blast coming out from Graves. The heal has been popped by Ezreal, but Youngbin's going to take him down as he goes legendary. Impala Tamer's there to just clean up the scraps there, and it is a 3-for-1 in favor of UCI.
Oh boy, University of Wyoming kind of got baited into that fight. They're rotating up to the top side to get ready for a top push that they thought was coming probably after that Rift Herald. Bumps into Youngbin, and you don't bump into Youngbin when he's that fed. He blows you up.
Yeah, 8-0-4 now for Youngbin's Orianna. Like you said, member Team Liquid Academy. Very powerful force from the challenger scene in North America. Now transition over to UCI. I wouldn't say they have to play around him, but when he's doing stuff like that, just deleting the enemy jungler at this stage in the game, he's pretty powerful.
Yeah, living out that late game fantasy at 19 minutes into the game. He is pretty fed.
Already Abyssal Scepter, Merlin, Namicon picked up Sorcerer's Shoes, and needlessly large rod as the inhibitor winds up falling here. UC Irvine, they just got to be ecstatic over the start to the uLoL Campus Series.
Yeah, this is a great start for them, and we can look at a replay of just exactly how they blew up all the members of University of Wyoming to take down that bot inhibitor. It basically, like I said, started with them taking that Rift Herald and University of Wyoming moving up. Oh, maybe we'll get into it in a second.
Yeah, we have to wait because Youngbin wants blood. He picks up another kill on the Janna, 0-3-0 there for Zenith, and he almost took down the Nautilus with him, half health.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Youngbin show. He's the only one, you know, getting stuff done all on his own. And here we see, like I was saying before, pulls in the Janna with the shockwave, chunks her out. She tries her damnedest to stay alive, but can't do it. He kind of gets caught out, but Tahm Kench is there to keep him safe as the rest of the team collapses from that Rift Herald to start this fight out.
And we can see right here, the Trinity is able to pick up a kill on Locktram, but pretty much this is just the rotation's an interesting word, but just the map movements from the side of UC Irvine are just a step above the University of Wyoming. Even though Youngbin looked like he might have been caught out there, it was all according to plan.
Yep, he has his team there to back him up, and we see that with all the pressure that UC Irvine has, they feel like it's pretty safe to go for a 20-minute Baron.
Youngbin's not even with the team. He went into the mid lane to try to assassinate the Ezreal, and the Ezreal just shifted out of there, so this is going to be a free Baron for
Hey man,
UCI.
it's the Youngbin show, not the UCI show. We don't care what they're doing. Get the camera back on Youngbin.
Well, the interesting part is that Youngbin, when we talk to some of these players at UCI, he is kind of the shot caller because he does have that challenger experience, and as we can see here, mentioned before, he wasn't supposed to be the focal point of this composition. His shockwaves can be game-changing, but the fact that they are moving around and they opened up that mid lane early on, it goes to show that when he makes a call, the team is there to listen and they're able to capitalize.
And I think that's actually a really important thing to have on your team is that when you start finding yourself the fed member of the team, having that kind of killer instinct to take the game over. And it's very possible that Youngbin got, you know, those early kills as we see UCI sieging down this top turret. It was very possible that Youngbin gets a couple early kills and just slowly controls his lane, but that was not the case. He blew the game wide open, and that's really what you need to see when you're favored in this matchup.
Well, Rengar's on the hunt and Poppy's behind the tower. They're both going to wind up going in the command. Shockwave lands and they are eviscerating University of Wyoming. 3 kills picked up straight away. The tower's going to fall after that. Baron buff minions pushing down into the base, and there are only 2 members alive. Both of them marksmen. Both of them need to run the heck away as Impala Tamer flashes forward, gets the red buff slow on Trinity. He is not going to wind up pick up the kill, but then Poppy just smashes Ezreal against the wall, and Impala Tamer says, thank you, I'll take that.
You guys have talked enough about Youngbin. It's time to talk about the other members of the team. Pretty good synergy there between Tower of God and Impala Tamer going in. Impala was not able to pick up the first kill, but with the help of Poppy, secures the other one. And we see that this is going to be pretty easy for UCI to close out. They still have the Baron buff. They still have all their members alive. University of Wyoming can't get out of their fountain.
I've seen Oriannas control the lane with their ball placement. I've never seen them control the enemy fountain with ball placement the way that Youngmin is doing right now. But with both Nexus towers down, the Nexus about to fall itself, UC Irvine is going to take themselves a very quick 22.5-minute game number 1 over the newcomers in University of Wyoming.
Yeah, and this was quite the stomp. We thought that UCI had the better comp in the early game. They proved it. Seemed like they had better players everywhere as well, controlling every single lane, having CS leads, having better trades in general, as well as having great coordination between them, and ultimately being able to snowball this game real quick.
Yeah, well, originally going into this game, University of Wyoming said that we are afraid of our first match because it is against UCI.
They had good reason to.
I think we know why now.
Yeah,
it was insane.
They definitely seem to struggle to keep up just in terms of individual mechanics, which is the concern, because then how do you ever get out of an early game well with being forced into standard lanes every game? And then once they were out of the laning phase, UCI had such a lead, and they clearly are confident about moving around the map and prioritizing objectives. They were able to blow that game wide open, which is something that's really important, being able to extend it throughout the mid game.
And when we talked about during the picks and ban phase, Wyoming kind of had more of a reactive kind of team composition. And even though the side of UCI was making proactive plays, they were going forward, they were doing things, we never saw a point in time where Wyoming felt that they were comfortable enough to kind of contest any of those things whatsoever. They just kind of went forward. They were just like, okay, like we want to try to prolong this lane phase for as long as possible. UCI identified that, and they just didn't let them.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just Youngbin as much as we talked about Youngbin during this game. It was for good reason. They did, like I say, get the bot turret without him, you know? The fact that their bot lane was able to get that kill on Ezreal right away, call the jungler down, there's that small 3v3 thing where they're able to pick up the turret.
Yeah, and even though the top lane was kind of just like 2 tanks slapping each other a little bit, the Poppy roams towards the mid lane helped them break that first tower. And even though Youngmin had pretty much already established lane dominance in there, the ability to recognize it's time to take that tower, stop bullying your lane around, start bullying the map around, that's just the kind of decision making that you don't necessarily see out of a lot of the collegiate teams, and that's why UCI, one of the higher ranked seeds in the Western Division and in the entire campus series themselves.
Right, so let's take a look at a couple of replays of exactly how they managed to blow this game open so quickly. And here is kind of what was the first thing that opened the map up a ton. They are able to start a fight where they get the Janna, Youngbin making a solo play, and then the rest of the team coming in to support him after that kill. Locktrain goes a little deep here, but it's fine. He's a Rengar, just get that fight going, which he does correctly. The rest of the team is able to follow up, get a kills. And on the back end of this, they're able to run bot lane where Poppy already has a wave kind of building and push that in ultimately into the inhibitor turret and take the inhibitor really early on.
Yeah, and it's those kinds of control and choke point fights that just played to the strength of their composition. They knew that they had the Orianna command shockwave. They knew that they had all those kinds of pieces to the puzzle fit. They just needed to kind of bait the enemy team in there, and Wyoming was playing rather scared. When they did finally feel like, oh, we can make this play happen, it backfired on them because they were too far behind at that point.
Yeah, it's really hard to play from a position like that once it does snowball that hard. And Wyoming, yeah, they struggled.
Yeah, they struggled a lot. And even to the point where UCI was able to secure an unopposed Baron, which we'll wind up seeing in a replay in just a little bit. The Orianna wasn't even there for the Baron. She was just kind of standing off to the side, zoning away the rest of the team. Nobody wanted to even contest Youngmin, let alone the fact that there was something going on in the Baron pit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing where 20-minute Barons are usually really difficult to do and risky to go for, and they didn't even need their most fed member in the entire game to help them take it. They felt totally confident, like, all right, let's just go in here, let's take this. If they come in, we'll turn off it, and we'll just kill them right away.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, it was pretty much the Youngmin show, but the other players on the side of UCI did kind of play their part. Locktrain looked to be potentially one of the more haphazard points of their team as he was jumping into things, but he was also the member that was helping secure a lot of these things that wound up happening. And in this fight particularly, he was the one to really set up that Orianna shockwave to just end the game.
Right, and we see that this is the fight that ends the game. Poppy gets a great flank as University of Wyoming tries to hold on to their last top outer turret. We see Poppy and Rengar both come flying in, sets up the Orianna Shockwave, real simple, gets 2 kills, he gets the 3rd one there, and they're gonna just finish this turret off, chase down, and this is where we see Impala Tamer trying to get a little bit of spotlight for himself. He doesn't want to keep being in Youngbin's shadow. He's gonna flash in here and try and get a kill. It's ultimately gonna need the Poppy help to secure it. I believe the Ezreal gets away, but then, or the Grave gets away and they turn onto the Ezreal.
Yeah, this is where Poppy decides he can flash in too, only when Poppy flashes in, somebody gets stunned against the wall, and that's when Impala Tamer is able to pick up a kill. So really good stuff coming out from the side of UCI, a little bit one-sided, but what does Wyoming really need to do to slow down what UCI did in this game?
Find a hyperbolic time chamber, because my concern isn't the draft and necessarily how they looked outside the laning phase. My concern is that laning phase where they were basically losing every single lane. We saw even in the jungle that Rengar was basically abusing Graves, stealing away a lot of camps. Good synergy there where Youngbin's coming over and helping control the Skeletal Crab, really extend that lead. And my concern is that in the early game, there's just no way for them to be able to keep up with UCI.
Yeah, I think Trinity himself was kind of one of the shining lights on the Wyoming. Even though he got invaded very heavily, even though he was on a very farm-centric jungler, he still tried to make things happen in the mid lane. He burned a ghost from Youngbin, wasn't quite able to get the flash. Youngbin was able to kind of turn around and force them out of his lane, but he was in the spots that he needed to be towards the beginning of the game, despite not having those resources. So if he had something with, like we talked about in Pick and Ban, something a little bit more proactive, something a little bit more CC-oriented, they might have been able to turn some things around.
And that can come from the laners too. Other than, I mean, Nautilus can set stuff up, but it's against the Poppy. The Syndra is strong as well, but was just losing the lane, and the bot lane couldn't get much done. So maybe if they're able to pick a jungler with a little bit more early game impact, they can get control of one of these lanes that it seems like skill-wise is already in UCI's favor.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what kind of adjustments they really wind up making for game number 2. It is going to, of course, we're going to swap sides as well, so we'll see if Wyoming has a little bit of advantage or disadvantage while they're playing on the red side. And we'll have to see what kind of happens as we jump into picks and bans for the second matchup.
Right, and of course, when you jump into the other side, you have to change up a couple things. We saw, well, maybe not, because actually we saw the blue side Camille ban, which is usually a red side ban, as well as the LeBlanc ban being one. So a couple of those bans you'll expect to see still, and a lot of them coming from the red side. So now that what I'm concerned about is UCI has more freedom technically on the blue side to ban away. I don't know if they can, if University of Wyoming, for instance, can ban that Riven again, which was a little bit of a questionable ban potentially.
Yeah, it seemed it was a little bit more of a targeted ban as opposed to something that has just been one of those powerful pickups, but there are going to be a lot of different kind of adaptions to making this one. There are 2 support bans, both the Zyra and the Karma. We'll have to see if either one of those winds up getting there.
Now that they're being forced onto the red side of the draft, you have to target more of the OPs, I think, and I expect to see the Riven pick get dropped, or the Riven ban dropped.
Yeah, and as we saw in the first draft phase, they are already kind of banning those things. They banned the Camille when they were on blue side. They didn't necessarily have to. They were banning away Karma. They didn't want that one on the Rift. And so that Riven ban would potentially be the only thing we really see changing here. You see Irvine, though, like you said, now they're on blue side. They have the ability to just be like, oh, well, we banned Zyra last time, but we want Zyra, so we're not going to ban it, or like anything along those lines.
Yeah, and of course there's always the option of the red side team to say, screw it, we're going to leave up all the OPs. And I think, if you're going to see that somewhere, maybe the collegiate scene, maybe this game, but I think unless you're used to playing with all those things, which not many people are, honestly, with the amount that they get banned, not only in solo queue, but in any kind of scrims that you usually have, most people aren't that practiced on it. And we see the Katarina, the Ryze, and the Riven come in so far. So I guess they are sticking with the Riven ban.
I guess they are still sticking to it. Maybe they don't necessarily feel as comfortable in the matchup. Maybe they don't have anything necessarily prepared against it. But like you mentioned, the 2 mid lane priority bans, we see those banned pretty much all the time. So not really surprising to see them banned out here. But we'll see how Wyoming kind of adjusts here. The Camille ban does wind up staying, so continuing the trend of like those 3 OP champions being banned out and sticking to their guns with the Riven.
Right, and I actually do like kind of targeting these carry tops a little bit and forcing a tank versus tank matchup. Even though he was down CS, that was a relatively stable lane. It was the last outer turret to go down, and it took some help to get it. So if their game plan is stabilize top lane and get something aggressive in the mid lane like the Syndra, I don't hate that plan, but we see the concern here is that the LeBlanc is still up, and that was pre-rework, one of Youngbin's best champs, so we'll see if he's able to get it here.
Yeah, well, the LeBlanc will be available. They are going to ban his Orianna, so they don't want that one floating around. But that means the Rengar's still open. That Locktram was very scary on. Definitely dominated Trinity's early jungle clears, continuously invading him. We still see Poppy, Nautilus, and Maokai, those kind of 3 pillars of the top lane tanks still left open. The Karma has been left available, whereas the Zyra has still been banned out here. And it looks like that UC Irvine are going to identify the fact that if it's not broken, don't fix it, and they're going to take the Poppy first.
Right, it's a little interesting given the number of power picks available, but I guess maybe they're thinking that something is going to to come back to them. These guys aren't going to take all the broken supports as well as the Rengar and the LeBlanc. You know, something's going to come back to them. Though I am a little bit surprised to see the Poppy, though obviously Tower of God is very good at it. It's not necessarily something that you need to, you know, play. There's other tanks you can play, and we see University of Wyoming take the Nautilus and the Vi. I actually like the Vi pick. It's a change-up. There's a lot of junglers still open, but it does force action really, really hard, which is kind of what they were lacking with the Graves pick.
Yeah, and it was very interesting to see that they go for the Vi now when it was available last game. They chose the Graves on over it. So maybe this being the fact that they realized, like, hey, Trinity needs a little bit more of that ganking power in the early stages of the game. We talked about at the end of game 1 that if somebody needed to do something to make moves on the map early, it was going to be Trinity. Vi's a little bit more of a playmaker in that sense, but now you've given
Speaking of playmaking,
you're giving a Lee Sin over to Lock Tran, and the Syndra has gone to Youngbin, which is a take away from the side of Wyoming.
These two picks together are super strong because Syndra generally controls mid lane, Lee Sin generally controls the jungle. You put those two together, and especially at 6, they can start making plays all over the map. Syndra, not the best roamer, but even if it's just heading over to the other team's blue buff on a contest, she can just take over everything around the mid lane and just slowly start spreading out over the rest of the map. So that's a pretty big concern given just how hard Youngbin carried last game.
Yeah, now he's on a champion that actually deals even more damage, which is kind of hard to believe seeing how many plays he made with the Orianna last time. But the response from Wyoming is going to be to take the Caitlyn away from themselves, to give themselves potentially one of those winning matchups in the bottom side of the map, and to pick the Ahri into the Syndra, which is something that's gained a little bit more popularity recently.
Yeah, you see it a little bit in solo queue. We haven't seen it much in competitive play at least. And it's always been just outside of kind of the top tier for the past year or so. You saw people take it occasionally for comfort, and I assume that's what's going on here as well. And it's never been weak. It's just not always been quite in the same class as whatever the flavor of the month thing is. And the other thing, of course, is the Caitlyn being taken away. I actually like that. Obviously, UC Irvine was very happy with the Caitlyn last time, was able to get a kill as well as take the turret extremely early, and Caitlyn taking it away from them will allow them to hold on a lot longer.
Now, in the last 2 picks coming in from UC Irvine, they wound up taking the Karma that was banned out last game, and they picked Callista, who she's gotten a little bit of love recently in some patches. There's a little bit of talk about maybe a new build on her with the Bork, the Hurricane, and then going into the Death Stance. There's a lot of potential around this pickup, but we haven't actually seen a lot of it in competitive yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen a ton, but I've been watching a little bit, and I think it's actually pretty good. It's not quite, once again, that utility AD carry tier, but once you see that, it's actually surprising to pick it into Caitlyn too, because Caitlyn's one of the other counters that you see, but I guess they're hoping that with a little bit of help from the jungler in the mid lane, they're going to be able to make a lot of dives happen in the bot lane, as well as being just better laners that we kind of saw in the first game. So I think, you know, kind of picking a losing bot lane in a sense might work out fine for them, and it's going to be a very aggressive thing where it works out really well or really bad.
Well, the Janna was the last pick that the side of Wyoming wound up taking, so repeating the performance from their support this time around, but a little bit more in a bully lane. We'll see if the shield and the extra damage coming up from that will be enough. As we see a recap of the draft here, both of these teams changing up a couple of things, but at the core of things, kind of keeping some of the things very, very similar. Youngbin now even more unable to carry, whereas on the opposite side of Wyoming, their lane matchups seem a little bit more better.
Yeah, and it's also what I'm really looking forward to see is what can happen in the jungle. Hopefully he has a better route in the early game where he doesn't get abused as hard by Lock Tran, falls behind, and then the fact that he has this ganking jungler. Yeah, I mean, we always talk about Vi 6, but her level 3 ganks are fine too. So hopefully he can turn something in the early game and get one of the lanes in their favor, even if they have to blow a lot of resources to do it.
Well, we'll have to see what winds up changing in this one. We'll see if anybody's opinions have changed as well. So you guys out there, who do you think is going to win the second match? Tweet either hashtag Irvine or hashtag Wyoming to @UCLOL and make your pick to see who is going to wind up taking this match away.
Yeah, I'm still going to go with UCI. Still think they're favored, just given the dominance that they showed in terms of individual skill, but I do like the fact that on the side of University of Wyoming, they have more of this playmaking.
Yeah, UC Irvine definitely came into right out of the gates in that last game. They were invading extremely aggressively, not necessarily from level 1 standpoint, but on the first jungle clear, they were not afraid to really just jump into the opposing side of the map. We'll have to see if they continue doing that in game 2, or if Wyoming's going to be able to better respond to that as well.
All right, so let's make our way into game 2, where we get to see exactly how it shapes out.
And as game number 2 of this series loads onto the Rift, we swap sides here, so UC Irvine on the blue side and the University of Wyoming over on the red side. And you got to kind of think that if you were going to be as aggressive on a Rengar pickup into the Graves, if you have something that is not necessarily as farm-centric like the Vi is going to be. She wants to be more active on the map, and you have something that is tried and true at annoying a bunch of enemy junglers like the Lee Sin on the side of UC Irvine, that we're going to see something extremely similar play out, but it looks like it is the side of University of Wyoming that is grouping up heavily on the bottom side of the map.
Yep, and it's probably going to be a similar thing. I doubt they invade. They did this in the first game where they group up in a bush and hope that someone walked close enough to get, chunked out or blown up with the face check. But I doubt that's going to happen. We do see a little bit of a collapse onto Youngbin Syndra.
Ooh, Papa Fresca.
We're going to get a fight level 1. We see the exhaust come out onto the Caitlyn's trying to make her way over the team. Just flashes out. They actually didn't want to pick that fight, which is probably a good idea, honestly. Syndra is a really strong level 1. Karma, a very strong level 1, just generally speaking. Lee Sin, another one, they just win that level 1 fight. So smart of University of Wyoming to not take that.
Yeah, but they do have to burn the flash out there from Papa Francesco. He was out a little bit too far, and Caitlyn did not want to start E as well to try to get himself out of that one. So they burn the exhaust, but they trade it for the flash, and it looks like the bottom lane side of UC Irvine is still posturing aggressively, but on the top side of the map, Locktran and Tower of God, they're starting this early invading right from the get-go as they are contesting this red buff just as it spawns.
Yeah, and it doesn't actually look like University of Wyoming is going to make too much of a fight to stop it. Nautilus is kind of pacing around nearby, but we see on the bot side of the map, they're focused on securing this blue buff, which is getting harassed pretty heavily by UCI.
Yeah, those Mantra and Power Qs coming out from Karma are just decimating these health bars, as well as the Ren Spear stacking up. Trinity is going to get the heal off of that smite, but it is going to mean that he needs to back away here now. And Palatamer taking a little bit of damage. The Ren Spears do slow down Caitlyn off of that chase, but in the mid lane, we already see action as Locktran, early level 2 gank, forces the flash from Get Reformed immediately.
Yeah, that's such a... You need to be aware of that cheese. You know the Lee Sin was starting on your red buff. You know that he's going to be making his way back to his own side of the jungle pretty soon. It's very likely that he swings behind you and see what he can get, and he managed to do it. It's very unfortunate that Ari had to lose her flash there, and probably was something she should have been aware of.
Well, on top of that, by Lee Sin ganking aggressively that early on, he just cuts through the mid lane, doesn't really bother to just keep the Ari underneath tower or anything, burns a summoner spell, which is great, and that means he's also going to get his red buff, which means it's going to be a 3 buff start for the side of UCI, in addition to all this damage as soon as their bottom lane hits level 2. Papa Francesco taking a lot of damage. The shield's going to keep Kalista alive just long enough for first blood to go over to UCI, but it is a trade kill.
Yep, it is a trade kill, and you mentioned the 3 buff, but what actually happened is Trinity noticed where Lee Sin left mid lane from and saw that pass, so he actually cut into his jungle to take away his blue buff. So it's going to be a weird thing where Lee Sin gets 2 reds and they get 2 blues.
You see right here the bottom lane of UCI, they know that level 2 spike is coming in, and even though Impala Tamer is a little bit lower in HP, the extra damage coming out from Karma, even through the exhaust, the Ren in addition to the Q coming out from Karma, just enough to take down Caitlyn before Kalista falls.
Yeah, it's kind of a situation where even though you traded that exhaust for flash level 1, what would have been better there? If both summoners were up? Who knows? Because, I mean, the 1-for-1 trade's good, but the kills went both on support, so it's kind of, who benefits here?
Well, in that case, it might just be the Karma, because she's packing a lot of damage.
Karma doesn't mind getting some kills, I'll say that.
All right, but in the top side of the map, Trinity is going to try to make something happen. You mentioned that between himself and the Nautilus, their mom gank please, they were able to just invade the enemy blue buff, so we see that on Vi right now, walks up the Tower of God, does put down the Steadfast Presence though, so he's not going to be able to wind up getting the Vault Breaker in, but he is going to follow up after it falls down, but just trading damage, no summoner spells burned.
Yep, it's one of those ganks where you get a little bit pressure for your laner, not much else. Honestly, I think it's a little bit better to keep your farm up during that time, because we see that he is down quite a bit to Lee Sin, already 12 CS behind, and Lee Sin is moving up to continue contesting the top side jungle camps of Trinity.
Yeah, and Trinity's had 3 separate people in his jungle now as the bottom lane was harassing him at level 1 compared to just the Rengar he had to deal with last game. So Locktran continuing to try to find out where Trinity's going in his jungle, where is he going to wind up being. Trinity, though, despite having the misleading amount of very much smaller CS, has been able to take some of those more priority camps and therefore does have a slight level advantage over the side of Locktran. But once he clears out these rafters, he himself should wind up hitting level 4.
Yep, and we see that Youngbin continues to pressure down the mid lane as they trade really aggressively onto Caitlyn. This is going to be a kill for the Kalista, who's going to turn onto the Janna, looking to pick up a second, but forces the flash out.
Yeah, and that's just the power of Kalista. Once you actually get underneath Caitlyn's range, you just stick to her like glue, and the ability to just shut her down like that. Continue to try to play aggressive. Meanwhile, on this mid lane here, Trinity's going to wind up trying to get the Vault Breaker in, but he does wind up missing a little bit. Locktran and Youngbin going to try to turn around. They do force the flash out. Now, Get Reformed, he is actually going to take down Locktran as he took a one too many tower shots waiting for Youngbin to try to pick up those kills.
Yeah, he tried to get in range to finish off Trinity, but got charmed under turret, took too much damage, and now we see Karma poking around, hoping to clean up one little sneaky kill, not able to. And Youngman's going to finish pushing this in. People are going to reset, but the bot lane is going very, very poorly for University of Wyoming. This should be a favorable matchup for them, but that exhaust flash trade that happened level 1, exhaust of course comes up earlier. You can basically walk up to the Caitlyn, get on top of her, just exhaust her for free, and that's what really started that trade and enabled that kill to come in for the Callista.
Well, clearly this is the Impala Tamer we saw at the end of the game in game number 1, where he wanted his name being said instead of Youngbin. As they set up another brush bait here with the control ward in the river brush, getting a lot of damage down into Zenith. It looks like Callista is going to step on the trap though, so Impala Tamer not going to be able to pop those Ren spears. Didn't look like enough to take down the Janna anyway. Yeah,
good trap by Papa Francesco. Sets up kind of a barrier, enabling the Janna to walk away, but it's still not too good for them. They're losing the trades pretty heavily, and Impala Tamer is eventually going to be able to get a good reset off. And once he power spikes on his first item with the Blade of the Rune King, which power spikes a lot harder than Caitlyn's gonna, the lane's going to go even worse, especially when you factor in the level 6s and the dives that they can hopefully set up with the rest of the team.
Well, every single lane in this game, again, is going in favor of UC Irvine, as Locktran still camping around the bottom lane here, does wind up getting the Spirit Rush out of Get Reform's Ahri here, just to try to run away from him there. So even though Ahri has gotten herself a kill, nearly being doubled in CS, as Locktran flashes forward, tries to get the Sonic Wave, the ultimate coming out there from Youngman as well, just barely not enough to take down Get Reform.
Right, this seems like a little bit of an overforce coming out of UCI. They've been playing around the mid lane this whole game, and a couple times things have not gone their way. Even though they gave up that one kill where there's an overchase out of the Lee Sin, Vi also missed her Q to start that play off, and if she just hit that, you might have ended in a situation where University of Wyoming is able to pick up a lot more kills. So I think they need to clean up their play a little bit around the mid lane for UCI so that they can actually snowball as opposed to just keep blowing flashes and summoners there.
Well, UCI is continuing to play super aggressive. We mentioned Locktran was the one that was a little bit haphazard with some of the ways he was running in on Rengar, and was the only one on his team to die last game. This time around, he's not going to own that honor, as we do have deaths in the bottom lane, but University of Wyoming has been able to adapt. We mentioned that Trinity needs to make things happen earlier in the game, as unfortunately he does get his second red buff stolen away, and will now be facing down a level 6 Lee Sin and a level 7 Poppy, collapsing him from the top lane. Actually, multiple members of both teams looking to maybe just force this an entire fight, as the flash, heroic charge forward, goes down from Tower of God. The kick comes out from Locktran already, but the flash out from Vi, but they are going to wind up getting straight knocked up by Poppy as Youngbin rotates over and picks up the kill.
Yeah, it was a really funny situation where people kept getting CC'd out of their abilities. We saw that the Lee Sin got knocked up right when he kicked, so he couldn't follow up with the easy Q. Here we see Karma collapsing back on the Caitlyn, forces the flash out, but the level 6 for Callista is going to allow her to use her ultimate to secure the kill.
Looks like Callista just going to pop those spears at the last second, and Papa Francesco not having a fun time in this matchup that we thought was going to be in favor of their bottom lane. The range advantage from Caitlyn was devastating for his Ezreal, or against his Ezreal last time around, but now that they've picked the Caitlyn for themselves, Impala Tamer just saying, you know what, I know how to play against this.
Right, and I think you can look a little bit at the support pick as well. Generally, Janna does not do as much in lane as a lot of other support picks. Right now, supports are kind of ruled over by the ones that can deal a lot of damage. You see it with the Malzahar, the Zyra, the Karma here, and the fact that they're opting for a Janna pick with some of those other ones up is putting them at an unfavorable position.
Yeah, so the kind of passiveness coming out from that support pickup is maybe showing through a little bit, as if you're just going to sit back and farm or just want to be able to do that, Callista and Karma are going to be just happy to jump on top of you. But the mid lane matchup this time around, Youngmin not necessarily dominating as much as he is on the Syndra matchup as he was in the Orianna matchup last time around, but it's still a 75 CS advantage to 39, but you can't count out the fact that he basically has a third summoner spell in Locktran.
Yeah, Locktran has been hovering around mid non-stop, making plays in the other team's jungle as well, and it allows Syndra to do what she really wants to do, which is play super aggressive. When you know you have that backup right behind you at all points in the game, you can just know that if the 2v2 comes mid, Syndra generally wins it. So you just keep keeping your jungle around mid, keep forcing fights. If they try and fight, you win that fight most likely. If they try and avoid it, well, then you're pressuring really hard.
Yeah, and Youngbin here was trying to play a little bit safe, clearing out some wards, knowing that both the summoner spells are down, but does run in to get reformed. But Ahri very, very low on mana. The teleport is being channeled here by the side of University of Wyoming. They want to take this fight. Trinity's locked up Locktran, and he's going to go down as Papa Francesco picked up a kill for himself. Now they're trying to turn him on to temp name. The ace in the hole goes out onto Youngbin, but Trinity's going to wind up going down in the middle of that fight already. Now Tower of God has joined the fray, and he is just a big Poppy in the middle of absolute absolutely everybody from the side of University of Wyoming. Now Nautilus tries to get the ultimate down, but the Undertow is not going to do enough. A double kill picked up by Poppy, and now Impala Tamer looking on the back of this fight to clean up another kill onto Zenith. The Tornado does wind up coming out, but the Rend is there, and Impala Tamer picks one up for himself. Get Reformed had enough time to go back to base and come back. Is he going to be able to chase down Karma? Looks like the answer is going to be no.
Yeah, that was a pretty brutal set of events there where there's a small vision fight as, we see Ari getting blown up in the mid lane once again. Started all with a vision battle that both teams managed to collapse to TP into, and we get a huge 5v5 in the river that goes heavily in favor of UCI.
And what looked like a fight that University of Wyoming wanted to commit to. As soon as the bottom lanes really joined the fray, we saw the fact that Caitlyn just doesn't have the power that she wants to. Has picked up the Zeal, but was on a pickaxe instead of a BF sword compared to where she would want to be. And already the pieces for that Blade of the Rune King coming in for Kalista, no doubt going to be able to finish that one on her next back. Just the power levels of that fight were not equal when you compared the two mid laners to the two AD carries.
Right, and I think it's the kind of thing where Kalista at this point in the game is generally going to be stronger than Caitlyn anyways, but especially with how the lane's been going, fighting around the bot side of the map is not ideal, and if they could maybe get a 3v3 on the top side, it could go better, but we saw that they ended up fighting that 5v5, goes terribly for them, and now their bot lane turret's getting pressured.
Yeah, and it might wind up being the second tower of the game actually going down in favor of UC Irvine. Has already taken the first tower in the mid lane. Now an ultimate comes out from Syndra in the mid lane, and Youngbin, well, he's hitting that power spike of his own. Morel Namakan acquired, able to knock down Ari.
Yeah, he's picking up again. He was starting a little slow with only one kill, but after that team fight, picked up another one, got some assists. Now he gets his first solo kill of the game, and it's going to keep going worse and worse.
And this is how everything really began. It was Youngman kind of going for that vision, knowing both of his summoner spells were down, but runs into the rest of Wyoming, and they want to pick this fight.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a bad target selection there. As Ari shot her Q at someone else who Vi was not ulting, sent it at the Karma instead of the Syndra, which allows Youngman to get out. And then the fight, while initially starts good for University of Wyoming, once Poppy joins the fight, as well as Kalista, they're able to turn this fight around very quickly and start cleaning up kills.
And we see here Papa Francesco getting caught on the wrong side of the Poppy divide here. He's just going to wind up going down and then getting killed because of this. So going down towards the bottom and getting taken down as well.
Yeah, and the flash in by Nautilus there is that kind of panic. We need to get something out of this fight, and not able to actually clean up the kill, get anything done, just throws his life away once again, as we see UCI continuing to pressure around the bot side of the jungle, starting off a dive onto the Janna, and she just gets deleted.
Yeah, and so they've already taken down Janna. Before that, they took down the Cloud Drake, so clearly they go from Cloud Drake to the Cloud-based champion, or the air-based champion, just wanted to take them down. But this is the same sort of UCI that we saw from the previous game. As soon as Ray kind of came out of this lane phase, we get around to like the 12-13 minute mark, they start moving around the map, they start pressuring a lot of different lanes, and they're using that advantage they got just because they outplayed their lane opponents and just really snowball this game.
Oh, we see that the charm lands onto Kalista, is going to be able to run away, enough shields around with the Lee Sin and Karma to keep her up. But the pressure is probably going to have to stop here, not going to be able to get this turret, assuming, unless Youngbin flanks around from behind, we see him kind of showing up behind the mini-map, showing up behind the turret, excuse me, and it doesn't look like he's going to actually go for it.
Yeah, he's going for a little bit of zone control, but Impala Tamer was a little bit too hype, jumped a little bit too far forward in that one and got churned out by the Ari, but at 5-1 and 4, you can't help but feel a little bit indestructible as a Kalista there, especially when you have a Karma to really back yourself up, but they're still going to be bouncing back and forth between these two different turrets. Kalista may have gone back, but they already had priority in the mid lane, which is why Youngbin was able to roam down. They're able to take down that tower because it's already dropped extremely low, and now there's a tier 2 down.
Yep, and this is the kind of stuff that you're really excited about seeing out of UCI, the ability to move between lanes and react to minion waves and where they can get the most pressure and where the enemy is, as opposed to just sitting in lanes and pushing and getting in random fights. The fact that despite it is a stomp, they're still playing with their heads on their shoulders. It's not just total bloodlust. They see the correct plays, and that's the kind of stuff we want to see out of them, especially looks good for Peter Zhang, the coach. They're playing the game well, not just going and outclassing the enemy team in terms of individual skill.
Well, that's really great, too, because we mentioned earlier that a lot of the times in the campus series, you see very heavily carry-oriented games. You see one of those players really going for like the big stylistic play and kind of becoming like a solo carry for the team, making the big flashy statement. You don't necessarily see a lot of the macro player, the decision-making coming to be a factor. UCI has such a history of being a powerhouse throughout the campus series, and just showing that they can not only just dominate their lanes but play the map extremely well just speaks to their strengths and potentially a comeback for the squad that couldn't even qualify for the playoffs last time.
Right, and I mean, they kind of play into each other a little bit, where when you're dominating playing individually opens up the map. It's a lot easier to move around. But, you know, they are still getting those crazy plays as well. We saw plenty last game with Youngbin taking over a couple this game as he starts to clean up more and more kills as well. As Impala Tamer on the Callista having a great scoreline.
Well, unfortunately for the University of Wyoming, their scorelines are once again looking like they were last game, where it was 20 kills to 2 in favor of UCI. Currently 11-3, so a little bit better, but the Nerds might be getting the best of themselves with this new squad, as once again we see the 80 carry going down. The mid laner shortly followed after that. Trinity trying to pick up a trade kill on the Locktran, and he does, but now it's Youngbin in a 1v2 situation. He wasn't as fed as he was last game, but we've seen this happen before. He takes down the Janna. He has a Nautilus trying to chase him down, as well as a Vi coming in from the mid side of the map here. Youngbin is going to be trying to dance around. The Ghost has been popped. Does have a lot of footwork there. Gets the stun on the Nautilus through the ultimate knockup, so now he's been able to buy enough time for Callista to come around, and Impala Tamer is coming through saying, all right, man, I want some more. I got 6 kills for myself, 5 on Youngbin. I got to try to beat him here. They're chasing down Nautilus.
And Tower of God continues to play PvE on the top side of the map. Doesn't want to get involved at all. Just wants to kill that turret.
Poppy versus everyone.
Yeah, well, just the turret.
Just the turret, I guess.
Now, Impala Tamer is going to try to finish off Nautilus, forces out the flash. He doesn't have his own flash to follow with, so Nautilus is going to be able to get away scot-free here.
In the meantime, we did see Karma wind up wandering on the wrong side of the jungle, as she wound up going down to, I believe it was Trinity, so maybe just trying to chase after the Callista and the Syndra as we're going through chasing after the Nautilus, but wound up finding that Vi that just kind of turned around and gave up the chase.
Yep. One of those things where the whole rest of your team is running around, you're watching, trying to see what they're doing. Oops, bumped into somebody.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you're looking at the mini-map, you're looking elsewhere on the map, and you don't necessarily see yourself, especially walking through their jungle. They have a lot of vision down on the side of UCI, but not a lot over towards that blue buff area, though. University of Wyoming, one of the things they are doing a little bit better this game is getting that counter vision down, and they have been able to get a couple of key pickoffs because of that. But at 17 minutes, the Rift Hail now going over to Poppy. It's going to be difficult for them to kind of climb back into this one.
Yep, that is definitely one of the things. So we'll take a look here at exactly what happened to Karma. She was solo pushing bot lane by herself. And whoops, there's the Vi.
No, she didn't even have to walk into the jungle. The jungle came to her.
Unfortunately, fails to flash over the wall. Is able to get finished off there by the rest of the team. And that's just kind of a little bit of brainless play. Just busy focusing on pushing minion waves. His team's probably yelling about how they're picking up kills everywhere and not concerned about what's going to happen to you.
It was the first death there picked up by Tenala, temp name, as we'll have to see. Does wind up picking up in the upgrade to the Sightstone here. The Eye of the Watchers picked up there, in addition to the Guardian Boots of Lucidity, and Pieces of what looks like is going to wind up being that Redemption. Whereas on the flip side, the Eye of the Oasis, kind of the budget build coming out from Janna, in addition to a Negatron Cloak, because there's just so much magic damage coming out of the Youngbin already. Yeah,
he's a huge threat, but the problem is there's also a ton of physical damage. You have Callista, Poppy, Lee Sin, all those guys can basically blow the Janna up. So there's not a single item she could buy simply to make herself safe. She is in a rough spot.
We'll have to see if these item builds wind up getting completed too, as we had Youngbin in the mid lane, had his Morella Namicon early on, has a lot of pieces, a bunch of different things. The Negatron Cloak, a Remnant, just kind of denying a little bit of the damage that Ari was doing against him in lane, has picked up a Blasting Wand and needlessly large rod himself, and the Infernal Dragon that they are taking on the side of UCI is only going to multiply all that damage that they've started building out of those items.
Yep, and we also are seeing that they're going to try and go onto the Caitlyn, the net out, just out of range of the ultimate from Callista, as Nautilus starts TPing in. I'm not sure he wants to finish that one off.
No, he actually does. Winds up putting down the ultimate here, trying to catch on the Tenala temp line, misses the dredge line as Lee Sin comes in and kicks Papa Francesco back in. So even though he got out, he still winds up coming back in. Now on the back lines, Tower of God charges forward and takes down Trinity. A double kill picked up by Impala Tamer, as now the Nautilus falls as well, and everything is going south for the side of the University of Wyoming. 4 members down. The inhibitor tower in the bot lane goes down. The inhibitor's shortly going to follow, and it's only 19 minutes in.
Tom, you mentioned speed running in the last game. This time they're just racing against themselves. I don't even know if they're playing Wyoming. They're just trying to end this game faster than the other one as they look to close out onto the actual Nexus turret as well.
Yeah, it was 22.5 minutes is where they ended the last game, and now at 19 minutes and 20 seconds, they're already pressuring down this bottom side Nexus tower. The respawn timers are still fairly low, so University of Wyoming is here, and it could be very possible that UCI overstays their welcome just a little bit, as Nautilus is going to try to force them back in. The ultimate goes down onto Youngbin, and Locktran's going to be the one that takes a brunt brunt of the damage, though, as Trinity picks up a kill on him.
Callista's
but the
untouched,
Kallista's still hopping and spearing and rending absolutely everybody. Youngman picks up yet another kill for himself. The flash forward from Callista. The rend is not yet available. Will not be able to pick up a kill onto Ari, but that's 9 kills for Callista, 7 for the Syndra, and UCI is just setting up camp on the side of Wyoming's base.
So close to popping off there, but he blew his rend stacks a little bit too early, was unable to get the refresh on it by killing one of the champions, so he didn't have it to continue snowballing through the fight with constant resets of it. As we see Ari getting a little too close to the rest of the team, gets blown up instantly. UCI is refusing to leave the base. They want to end the game right now, but they're struggling to with the short respawn timers. University of Wyoming keeps respawning, just throwing themselves against the wall.
Youngman's landing a lot of these Scatter the Weak stuns just as soon as they come out of the fountain. They have not a lot of surface area to cover. They're either coming from the top side or the bottom side, and he's just landing these chain stuns. Another one goes down, and just one Dark Sphere cleans up Papa Francesco. The other Nexus tower is going to fall. The Nexus itself is going to fall. And it looks like they are going to beat their own personal best record here. 22.5 minutes game 1, just under 21 minutes here in game number 2. They're styling a little bit and picking up some kills in the fountain, but this is going to be UCI cleaning up Wyoming.
Really got to be a little careful here. It might get turned around, but Ari... Nope, never mind. Ari gets blown up. That's the only damage left alive. The Nautilus Janna not going to be able to do much. They're going to keep picking up kills, make their score lines look even better before they close this game out. They already know they got their PB. They're going for a couple of those style tricks at the end of the run. You know how it is.
21 minutes and 16 seconds is where game number 2 ends. As UC Irvine is going to take this series over the University of Wyoming in fast and very, very impressive fashion.
Right, this is exactly how you actually want to see a team performing against what you could consider a little bit weaker of opponent. Not only do they smash them in lane, but once that's over, there's no struggles, there's no, oops, we gave up a dragon that we shouldn't have gave up. They were able to control every objective, they picked up a ton of kills, they moved around the lanes well to get turrets. There was really not a single thing you can point out that was bad out of UCI.
No, UCI definitely played the map that very controlled. They were a little bit more haphazardous when they came into the earlier stages of this game, and a lot of that may be just because Wyoming picked a little bit more of an early game aggressive jungler in the Vi as opposed to the Grays. They still continued to invade the enemy jungle early. They tried to make plays happen off of that, and they still dominated those lane matchups. They controlled the Dragon Pit just as well. They still took the first tower and chained those towers down. I don't actually know if they took a tower in the top lane this game, but they didn't need to the way they were playing the map.
I think they might have when Poppy was up there just by herself, just handing it back and forth. I will say the one thing though is Locktrain was a little over-aggressive, died a couple times, and it set up some problems for his team. But here we're going to take a look at Youngbin, continue to style on the game, take it over. Locktrain going to try and help out. They go in on the Ari, get a nice ult to insta-kill her. Pretty easy stuff. Locktrain gets chunked out really low, and he's trying his best to stay alive, but the flash follow by Vi will be enough to clean up. And then it's Youngbin left up in the 2v1, but he's actually not done yet. He's still looking to play.
Yeah, this is Youngbin once again kind of taking over the game. Did not die at the end of the game either. So this is just him, and once again another part of his element where he's able to just dodge these skill shots, really force things down even in 1v2 situations, and still just know his limitations perfectly. That's the experience that he's gotten being in the challenger scene, converting it here into the campus series.
And I actually like seeing that kind of stuff to a degree where you're kind of in the enemy's face, not backing off. He easily could have just ran away from the Nautilus, but he looks to keep not disrespecting, but showing that he knows his limits and he's not going to back away and play safe when he knows he doesn't need to.
Yeah, exactly. And UCI, they definitely knew their limits, just not only from Youngbin's point of view, but from the entire team's point of view, which is why, even though this game ended very, very quickly, it was strategic in the way they played it out, especially towards that game-ending fight that snowballed off of a quadra kill in the bot lane.
Right, and we'll take a look at this, where there's, like you mentioned during this, there's basically two fronts that go in. The Nautilus comes in with the TP, definitely an overforced play here, and this is a really, really nice cue by Lockstram being able to snipe out the Caitlyn, kick her into her team, which leads to easy cleanup for Callista. And on the backside, Poppy's starting the fight on the back line with Syndra as well, being able to clean up 2 more kills. Very simple, very clean stuff, and they're able to convert off of this onto the bottom inhib turret. And then from there, they don't leave the base for the next 2 minutes as they continue to kill them over and over and close the game out.
They just kind of set up shop and tailgated on University of Wyoming side of the map in this one. They took down the inhibitor. They didn't even have to really move into another lane. They're just waiting for more minions to pour into the base, and then we're able to just really seal the deal. This is the kind of clean, coordinated play that UC Irvine has that a new squad like University of Wyoming just didn't know how to adapt to in the heat of the moment.
Right, and it's the kind of thing where we've seen UCI able to dominate with leads coming, later into the season, I'd love to see them play from behind a little bit, where they get tested a little more. But we at least know that they have the confidence and the skill to close out lesser opponents quickly.
Yeah, and University of Wyoming came in today saying that this was the match that they were afraid of.
For good reason, it seems like.
Yeah, it definitely showed why they have reason to be afraid. It's already shaping up to be an interesting season, so be sure to tune in next week when we'll have our second Campus Series broadcast of Texas versus North Carolina, as well as the start of our Big Ten Network broadcast, where my home state, New Jersey, gets Rutgers going up against Maryland.
Yeah, I'm sure you won't be biased
Not
at all for that. I think it's going to be a really interesting series. I don't know exactly who I'm taking as my favorite right now, but I'm just looking forward to seeing the games. The collegiate scene is one that I feel, compared to the pro scene, for example, where there's a lot of carryover season to season, there's a lot more turnover actually in the collegiate scene with people graduating, moving on with other things. And that's always nice to see new players come in, bring a lot of youthful energy to the scene, a lot of new people just coming in every year, and there's always new storylines.
Yeah, and we have a lot of brand new teams. Like we said previously, it was 32 teams in the last Campus Series. We expanded it up to 200. So you guys are going to not only be able to watch your favorite schools or your own school that you're going to, you're going to be able to see a lot of different competition from all across the country, from all over the place. That's our show for today, but thank you for watching, and we'll hope to see you again next week when we get 2 matches for the price of 1.
Bad spot. The game state's actually really good for UCI here, where all their lanes are learning is we see an aggressive flash in by Youngbin.
Yeah, the flash from Youngbin here. Is he going to be able to catch up in time for Sindri? The ultimate's available. Youngbin is barely going to get out alive. The command, protect, and the devour by Tom Ken to keep towers to none in favor of UCI.
Yep, as we see them once again engage onto the mid lane, picking up 2 kills quickly.
And they are looking to maybe speed run this game.
Kind of gets caught out, but it's going to force a team fight.
Yeah, and Zenith just gets absolutely deleted, but the Tom Kent and the rest of the cavalry has arrived from the Rift Herald pit. Looks like Trinity's going to take down Lockshine as he jumped into that shotgun blast coming out from Graves. The heal has been popped by Ezreal, but Youngbin's going to take him down as he goes legendary.
Oh, maybe we'll get into it.
Yeah, we have to wait because Youngbin wants blood. He picks up another kill on the Jazz. Level 6 Lee Sin and level 7 Poppy collapsing in from the top lane. Actually, multiple members of both teams looking to maybe just force this in the entire fight as the flash, heroic charge forward goes down from Tower of God. The kick comes out from Lockshine already, but the flash out from Vi. But they are going to wind up getting straight knocked up by Poppy. They want to take this fight. Trinity's locked up Locktran, and he's going to go down as Papa Francesco picks up a kill for himself. Now they're trying to turn him on to temp name. The ace in the hole goes out onto Youngbin, but Trinity's going to wind up going down in the middle of that fight already. Now Tower of God has joined the fray, and he is just a big Poppy in the middle of absolutely everybody from the side of University of Wyoming. Trinity picks up a kill on him, but the Callista's still hopping and spearing and rending absolutely everybody. Youngbin picks up yet another kill.
Score lines look even better before they close this game out. They already know they got their PB. They're going for a couple of those style tricks at the end of the run. You know how it is.
21 minutes and 16 seconds is where game number 2 ends. As UC Irvine is going to take this series over the University of Wyoming in fast and very, very impressive fashion.